Welcome to The Ugly Phase, the podcast for entrepreneurs who know that growth is never pretty. Every business hits the ugly phase, and barely anyone knows how to get out of it in one piece. Worse, no one tells you how to avoid showing your own ugly face when the pressure is on. Here, we break down real stories from founders who've been there, so you can push through and come out stronger. Every entrepreneur faces an ugly phase, but not everyone makes it through. This show makes sure that you do. Today, I have a guest who is in many ways attached to one of the previous guests, one of my faves, my namesake, Olga Zipa, who is the Next Day executive, who was on air a few episodes back. He's the man behind the legend. He's the partner in crime, the husband, the best friend, everything imaginable. Jarrod, please welcome and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Jarrod Evanyshyn. I am also known as the Next Day Nomad. So we've kind of kept the Next Day brand going in multiple facets.
I love that.
There's going to be multiple Next Day kind of businesses, I guess you could say, or little outlets of what we're going to be doing down the road. So we just like that because when we shifted our mindset, it was like the next day, and that was like, hey, this is cool. Like I like this. So yeah, no, I've been a little bit about me. I spent like Olga, I spent about 8 years in Vancouver in the film industry, and it was during the pandemic that her and I made the decision to make a slow exit from that and start focusing on a freedom-based lifestyle. And that everything kind of transpired from there, and I ended up in recruitment, which I'd always kind of been in a business sense in a lot of ways from in my early 20s. And then when I made the decision to leave my career in my late 20s and then move halfway across Canada, which halfway across Canada for most people could be considered halfway across the world because of how big it is. So I made the decision. Yeah, exactly. Right. So I made the decision to move halfway across Canada to the West Coast and pursue an acting career that I had very little experience in. So basically started fresh, had to change my mindset. And I just completely reinvented myself to actor Jarrod, and really owned that space for 8 years. And then, like I said, during the pandemic, I just felt like I wasn't aligning with what the industry was presenting itself as. It just wasn't speaking to me. I still love acting. I just didn't love what the film industry represents and what they were portraying on TV and that's totally fine. So I made the decision to kind of like, and then put into the pandemic that I felt like I needed to make a change because I had zero control over my career. So, you could be the best actor, but you could lose a part because you're, 6 inches too short or 6 inches too tall, or, it could be so many, your hair color might be different. You have no control over those type of things. And that didn't sit well with me, with the thought that, I knew that I had just met the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with, and that I knew that we were going to head down the road of having a family at some point, and like for security purposes, that just didn't sit well. So made that decision to like own my future, own my career, and make that change. And then the whole goal was to have location freedom. And then we eventually moved to the Dominican Republic, and I've traveled a little bit more than she has this past year. I traveled to about 13 or 14 countries.
Holy shit. Okay.
In the last year. Yeah. And then, so we lived in the Dominican for 6 months. And then in that 12 months, I should rephrase. We were in 12 countries. And that's including like Canada and the US. So we visited about 12 to 14 countries between the two of us. And then we're heading over to Asia in the new year. So a whole lot more plans to take our business to the next level. And and kind of see what's on our doorstep.
I love that. Could I ask you what were the toughest lessons that you learned during the acting career?
Oh, learning how to face rejection.
Okay.
As an actor, you face so much rejection, but it's helped me in recruitment because I work in technical recruitment. So I'm an agency recruiter. So I work with candidates who constantly face rejection, but I've been in their shoes because I've probably faced more rejection than they don't even know. They can't even fathom the amount of rejection that I've faced. Because I would do I could do 6 to 7 auditions a week and not hear a single word.
Ooh,
And,
okay.
it'd be very rare to see somebody do 6 to 8 first interviews in a week. But this was constant for like years. And, you book one and the thing is with when you have an agent in a film agent, like they just send you everything. They submit you for everything, and then casting will start bringing you for everything. And you just hope something sticks because you're still trying to
Okay.
figure out who you are. So rejection is like probably the biggest thing and then just working hard. Like it's not easy. You have to be, what I did when I started, I took my phone and I've had my screensaver. My screensaver said, someone out there is working harder than you. So every time I opened my phone, that reminder was there that someone else was working harder than me, and that person could steal my dream. And so I always instilled into me to just work hard as I could. But eventually, like, you burn out. You got to find a way to work smart
Course.
too.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, so, but you do have to work hard because like a lot of the people that I was going up against in film had been acting for a decade or
Ooh,
longer.
okay.
And I had been just getting my feet wet. So I needed to do this to work hard to kind of catch up like the basic skills and like get that skill level up so I could be able to compete in the same room as those people.
Did you go to an acting school, or was it more like, let me just try this?
No, so when I got to Vancouver, I did join like beginner classes, but like I didn't do a full-time program. They're actually I wouldn't say they're frowned upon. You're better off to just go and and have an acting coach. So for example, when I started, I have an audition coach that I would go to on Wednesday mornings, and that would be a 3 hour class or 2 to 3 hour class, but there'd be 12 students. And every week you're given a scene to prepare and bring
Mm-hmm.
and perform on camera in front of the class. And then I had a scene study class on Thursday nights, which would be you'd have a seed partner, or you would have it'd be on camera, and it would just be you bring, and you'd have a reader, but you prepare everything and just come and do it. Now the difference is the thing is people like, oh, it's only 2 classes. Well, each class probably it could be up to 10 hours of prep because you have to make decisions as an
Okay.
actor. So you have to analyze the script. You have to figure out who the character is. You have to figure out how you resonate with the character and
Mm-hmm.
basically make it your version. And so people don't realize, and then think about that when you have 6 auditions, you have to do that with every single audition. So it's a real gauntlet. So you have to get quick at understanding the script, the story, and who you are. How do you make those decisions and then prepare it? It's a lot of time management. And there's sometimes Friday rolls around and it's 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden you've got 3 auditions in your inbox that are due on Monday. Or you have to be on location to do the audition Monday. After the pandemic, everything kind of went more digital, and you kind of shoot the auditions from home and send them in. But that was probably the biggest thing, is just really managing your time, and you're having to cancel plans. I had to cancel 2 family trips. There was one time I was taking my parents to Arizona, Phoenix, for a golf trip. I hadn't seen my parents in a while. And so I said, well, so I paid for their flights, paid for our hotels, and literally like 2 weeks before I was supposed to go, I booked a part and I couldn't go. So you have to like be willing to drop everything. And that's just that if you want your career to succeed, you have to be available. But you also can't stop living your life either. So like when you go on holidays, you just have to like enjoy your holidays. If a really nice audition comes in that suits you, you can find a space to do it, or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to pass on this one because I'm on vacation. So it's just, you have to learn how to like separate the two. But I found it was getting very consumption. Like there was just so much, it was consuming my life too much. And it got to a point near the end where I was almost dreading going into the weekend and knowing that I had to shoot like 3 or 4 auditions. And, you know, I wasn't having a chance to, you know, wind down and enjoy my life for what it was.
I see. What would be the biggest regrets that you took away from those years?
Oh, you know what? I don't think I have any regrets. I think I learned so much about who I am. I try not to regret anything. I think that everything you go through seasons of your life, and you're meant to go through those struggles and those battles. I was meant to see those failures. I was meant to, and I say failures, but I should say growing pains. Because I was meant to go through those. And I think it really toughened my skin, and it made me see what was more out in the world. Now, keep in mind, like before I went to Vancouver, I do feel like my acting career kind of transpired me into who I am today, because I don't think I was happy with who I was before. I think I was lost. I was in my hometown, where I feel like a lot of people just kind of like get complacent, stay here, and life is simple, it's easy. But there's not a lot of growth. And if there's growth, it's just growth within. Whereas like I want growth globally. I want to take advantage of what's out there in the world, not what's within my city limits or my provincial limits. I want to be able to see the world and see opportunity and seek it and explore it and succeed in it. Whereas I don't see a lot of that here. And so I think the fact that me going to Vancouver to do film, I think really opened my eyes to what was out there, because I was living in the big city now. I wasn't living in small town. I was living in the city where like opportunities are everywhere and you're exposed to so much. So I think that was one of the things that really, really helped me. So I can't really say I had any regrets. I think I had lessons, but I don't think I had regrets.
Fair enough. Ironically, that reminds me of my own journey, because I've just basically got up and left Russia. Well, I did win green card in the green card lottery, so it would have been a lot harder to do it otherwise. And I didn't want to do, you know, the regular route of like doing work and travel and just like staying there as an undocumented immigrant, etc. That was never attractive to me. But I also, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, ew, that feels complacent. I mean, I lived in a fairly big city in Russia. It's like 3 million people in there. So it's like, it is a big, but it felt small. And I was like, man, I want to define the boundaries. And it's actually, I said it to Olga already, but during our conversation in the episode, I've realized that, because I was asking her, I was like, do you feel like you are repeating the steps of your mom, who has left to seek a better life? And she was like, yes. And I was like, it hit me in that moment. I was like, I've just realized 35 years later that I've been repeating the path of my father, who is the original hustler. Like, he grew up in a village, kind of small village in Russia. So he also defined boundaries on a different scale. And I just did it on the international scale, which I think, so my question was going to be, do you think somebody in your immediate circle inspired you to have this mindset?
To be quite honest with you, I don't know where the inspiration came from, because my parents have never left. They've lived in this same town their whole life. I just feel like I've always wanted more. I don't know what it was. I don't feel like, in a good way, not in a negative way, that I'm nothing like what my family, my sister and I are very similar. My sister went to music school in LA to learn music business. And then she lived in Vancouver, which actually I followed her to Vancouver. So that made it a lot easier. Now she's back in our hometown, but I don't know. I think there was just, I had this ambition that I wanted to do something different. I was tired of like, I just saw people living like this and I don't want to sound rude to anybody that might be listening from my hometown, because I just find it's mundane. It's, you get up, you go to work on Monday morning, and you go to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You clock out at 5 p.m. You're at the pub or the bar on Friday night and Saturday, and then Sunday you're watching football or hockey. And then you go to bed on Monday and you repeat. And to me, that is just like, it's not living. And I don't know where the inspiration came from, but I've always, even when I was in high school, I had these big visions, these big dreams. I was a hockey player, so I always envisioned myself traveling the world playing hockey. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I think I was always looking for a way out. I just felt like, I think that I was always looking for a way to kind of escape the reality of your hometown. And I'd read something, and I don't remember what it was, but I had read something in my late teens, early 20s, that you should leave your hometown at least once. And so I know that when the first time that I'd ever left was when I was I was 20 years old, and I went and I sold magazines door to door in British Columbia. So I live in Manitoba, went to the West Coast because I wanted to, and I spent the summer doing that. And I split up my summer where I did 3 months of that, and then I spent 2 months coaching hockey in BC as well. And that, I think that might have started it, just to kind of see something else that was out there. And then it just kind of ignited that flame that there's a lot more. And then acting was something that I'd kind of always thought about when I was a kid. But I never really did anything about it, just because I was like this rough, tough hockey guy. And if you want to get into acting in our hometown, you have to do like musical theater. Well, I don't sing, and it'd be very tough to kind of pick one or the other. And I was just so dedicated to my sport that I just kind of left it on the back burner until the flame got too big that I needed to act on it. But that took, almost twice the amount of my life, because I was about 16 when I realized I wanted to try it. And then it took me to almost 30 to actually, do something about it.
But that's your timeline, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has their
My
own
story.
timeline. It's, again, I'm just going to say it out loud because it just reminds me so badly of my own story. I think I got inspired by like Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, because it's just like
Yeah.
put this whole journey in front of me, and by the books. Like, I haven't seen the movies by then. And I was like, yeah, I want this. I want to go on some treasure thing, blah, blah, which has transpired to be going to the US, etc. But what you said, so I've done a fair amount of therapy, coaching, etc., and I have realized that what enables us to take risks and like go out of our ways, like out of our comfort zone, actually a loving environment at home, because it creates this kind of like safety net for us, basically saying it's okay, you can fail because you can always come back here and it's going to be totally fine. So that, I think, is like this red line that I've seen across a lot of
Yeah.
solopreneurs and founders who have taken risks and basically were not able to explain, or like, yeah, I don't have entrepreneurial parents, etc. But I'm like, have they been kind? So like, could you say that they're really good parents? I'd be like, yeah, they're like super great parents, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, here you go. That's the answer.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, my parents were so supportive. Like, when I left when I was 29, like, and I told them that I was moving to Vancouver to pursue acting, they were nothing but supportive. I think they knew that I had that flame in me to like do
Mm-hmm.
something great. But you mentioned, to back up 1 second there, you mentioned something about like, Lord of the Rings. I think that I've always been attracted to adventure.
Yeah, I think that's
Adventure
the word.
films,
Yeah,
adventure
adventure.
TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never wanted to get rid of my inner child. I think as a child, um, you always develop, and you use your imagination. And I think at some point I realized that you have to make that decision, or you don't actually have to make that decision, but society just makes it so it's so hard to use your imagination, and you grow up with the imaginary
Put you in the box.
quotations. They do. And I think that I really wanted to focus on, I wanted that adventure. I wanted to play. I wanted to, I was afraid of growing up because it's like when you grow up, you lose family. Family
Mm-hmm.
passes on, things change. And I think I just really, really, if I could be a kid forever, I would have. And I think I just really wanted to hold on to that imagination of adventure. So like I'm attracted to like adventure films, like anything that takes you on a roller coaster ride where you can almost feel like you're immersed in the experience. I think that is something that it's empowering. And then you just treat life like that. You treat life like it's an adventure and constantly growing and going through those things. So, but yeah, I think that was one of the things. And my parents just really like allowed us to kind of use our imaginations and never really like, said it was stupid to think outside the box. And even to this day, they've supported me on my crazy business decisions or, moving across the world into the Caribbean, just starting my podcast. Like they think it's great that I'm doing something that's out of the ordinary.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how my parents are as well. And for them, what I'm doing is like completely unheard of because nobody else from I don't have siblings, but I do have a lot of cousins and just extended family, and they're all just back there, and nobody has ever moved, and everybody's totally like happy with it. And I'm like, it's okay, like guys, like I'm happy that you're happy, but I wasn't happy that way, and it's
Yeah.
also okay that I decided to just you know get up and leave. And I think it's
Yeah.
what some people don't understand, that there is no right or wrong. It's just there is this like nice quote. I won't be able to recall it completely, but basically says some people are not meant to be in the system, and
Yes.
some people are meant to be in the system, and both are okay because society needs
And both are
both of
needed.
those
And
types.
both are
Exactly.
needed. Like I've caught myself a lot of times because like on my podcast I speak a lot about like you're not meant to do this, like you're not meant to live or work a 9 to 5, but and I always catch myself because without those people that drive the bus, that drive the trains, that build the houses, that are doing that hard work, like we need those people. Like if we didn't have those people, society would crumble. And so I
Exactly.
always catch myself thinking like, no, like you have to stop saying stuff like that. And I've gotten a lot better but there is a group of people out there that are not meant for the 9 to 5, that are meant for freedom and that can inspire others to do the same thing. I do believe that being said too, that a lot of AI could potentially replace those jobs. So that's why it's important to also get that message out to those people. But some people just love that, they love that commute to the office in the morning. They love the camaraderie of what the coffee room at the office stands for, or the locker room talk on a construction site, like the brotherhood. They love that stuff, and that's okay. And we need those people. We need those people in those positions. Otherwise, like I said, society does not move forward.
Exactly. We're all just different avatars, I guess, at the end of the day.
It's exactly it.
And I think what matters is just showing kindness to everybody and appreciation, as in like, if that's what you like, that's totally awesome for you, and
Yeah.
not trying to push everybody into the same category, as in like, because I've seen all of this like cringe content on LinkedIn and Instagram very often saying, "Oh, if you're still working 9 to 5, you're a loser." I'm like, no, that's what's wrong with the freaking social media today. Just like trying to push everybody into the same thing, and 95% of people, maybe even 96, are not cut out to be this like out of the system avatars. And we should say it more, that it's okay. Like it's okay not to want to be outside of the system.
Well, and I will also say
Because
this
this
too.
puts
There
all
was
this
something like,
pressure.
oh, it does. And like as a recruiter, like the US alone, I think had lost over there was about 1.6 million people laid off in 2024. Like that's an
Whoa, okay.
astronomical, and
Yeah.
it's an astro. It sounds like a lot, but when you think about it, it's literally like it's not even 1% of their population. Um, so
Okay, when we
it
put it in
sounds like
that
a lot.
perspective, that's different.
Yes,
Yeah.
but now you look at it into a global standpoint. So when those fake influencers who are saying like, oh, you need to quit your job. No, my message to those people would be like, hold on to your job as long as you have it. But if you want to build a lifestyle of freedom, build it first and then do a slow exit from your job. That is the right way to do it. Build a slow exit to the point where you have money coming in to support you, your family, whatever it is you have to support, and do a slow exit. And to the point where you can replace whatever income you need to be able to get by, where you can leave that position, but figure out what your why is. If your why is to have more freedom to travel or just to get rid of the commute, work from home, whatever it is that you're optimizing for, make that your purpose, not just, quit your job for the sake of quitting your job. Because right now it couldn't be harder to get a job right now. The market is not favorable to so many people. I've talked to people that are seasoned project managers, business analysts, software developers that have been laid off for 18 months to 24 months, so 2 years. And it's over in this side of the world, and it's been challenging. And with a lot of companies being able to hire remotely now, a lot of new companies, you're now no longer competing against people in your current demographic or geographical location. You're now competing globally.
The rest of the world, yeah. Wow.
It's really changed. It's changed the landscape. This is why I think the gig economy. So the gig economy I think it could replace the 9 to 5, where you will pick up like not odd jobs, but you'll pick up project work. I think we're heading in a direction where, if you're a marketing analyst, like you'll work on a marketing analyst project for X amount of time and you'll get paid for the project. So that and it's going to be project-based work. I think like Reid Hoffman, the CEO, co-founder of LinkedIn, predicts 2034, the 9 to 5 could be dead. So if that's the case, what can you do to move yourself in a direction to be prepared for that? Because it could creep up quicker. We don't know. This is just a prediction from one guy, but he also predicted in 1996 the prediction of the sharing industry, which is Airbnb, Uber, delivery, all that stuff, all those things. He predicted that in 1996, and that took over 10 years to come to fruition. So I think anything is possible. We have to be prepared. As a human being, you need to be prepared with what AI can do and what people are going to use it for, because it can really make your job obsolete.
Exactly. I think all of the like junior jobs will probably become obsolete, because then AI can do it, and then the senior person can optimize the output from AI. I mean, I'm never going to hide the fact that I'm using AI for everything at this point. It's like what I do most of the time is just take my phone on the voice mode, and I would like talk to ChatGPT and I'll be like, I want to make a post on blah, 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 blah. And I'll just like dump 5 minutes worth of my thoughts into it, and will summarize it for me, which significantly cuts down on the time that I would spend writing it, rewriting it, etc. So we're talking about 2 hours worth of work, cutting it into like 10 minutes. I will still polish the final version, but the work is done.
Oh, absolutely. And when you think about it, we only use a fraction of what AI can do.
Exactly.
We are limited to what we don't even know. Excuse me. We don't even know the extent of what AI can do. We can't even fathom it because we're not exposed to it. We only get access to like the very, very, very like
the surface
introductory level of what AI can do. It's incredible. I use it all the time. I think it's amazing. I think it is one of a very good tool. I mean, we're recording here on Riverside. I record on Riverside. At Riverside, same thing. Like which has AI. I use another app called Opus Clip that has an AI function that takes my recording and it gives me 50 clips of my podcast. So I don't have to go and edit it and pick it. It actually picks the best moments for me and tells me everything that I need to know. And each clip gives me my hook, my CTA, everything. And it's incredible because that saves me from hiring somebody to do that for me that I don't know anything about. So AI has replaced that person And it's just incredible. It's, I think if you're not using it, you better find a way to integrate it somehow so that you're not scratching your head saying, now what? Because it's going
Exactly.
to creep up real quick.
Exactly. But just to basically go back a little bit to what you said about potentially, the whole thing turning into like gig economy or project based stuff. I think this is already sort of happening with this acceptance that a lot of people have shorter, how do you call them? I guess job periods,
Job
contract,
duration. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
job
I know where
duration,
you're
yeah.
going with this. Yeah. I think
And
people
it's becoming
are,
acceptable that you can jump jobs, and it's not because you're a shitty employee, but it's only because you've completed your mission sort of at the company that you originally wanted to work for, and it's totally fine to move on to the next thing. Like it's an
well,
obsolete approach to consider that somebody needs to stay with a given company for like 10 years.
hmm? Yeah, well, here's the problem. Companies have zero loyalty. They have none.
Yes.
You are a number, you are a dollar value.
Hmm.
And if they can save money by slashing you, they will. They don't want to pay you more money. But here's the thing. So companies, like, the reason why people move around like every 2 years, you want to have at least some longevity in your job. So if you move around like every 6 months, you're going to come to a point where you don't have longevity. So it's going to be very hard to get a job. But if you're moving around every 2 years, what you're doing is you're actually changing your salary to the market every 2 years. If you were to stay at that job for 6 years, well, you coming out of that job, you are so undervalued, underpaid. They
Exactly.
have been getting a discount off of you for years. Whereas they're hiring somebody to come in and do the exact same position that you are at probably like, 20, 30, 40% more than what
Easy.
you're making
Hmm.
because this is why people like, and don't believe in the 401k stuff. Don't believe in the benefits. If you were to get into contract work, you would actually make more money on contract work. Yes, there is the
Absolutely.
security aspect of it. And I understand that people just love having that security, knowing how much they're going to make every 2 weeks as long as they're going to be at this company. But there's still the same risks of getting laid off, getting fired, whatever it
Because in the
is.
US, the contract
It's,
side will. Like people in
yeah,
Europe don't know this because in Europe you're super secure. Like you're never gonna get fired, especially if you're in France. Like impossible to fire anybody. In the
yeah.
US, it's a different story. Boop, you can be let go like this without any good reason.
And so I think that that's what's happened with the duration. And I think that companies now like I said, they have zero loyalty. They don't want to pay those 401ks anymore. They don't want to pay severance packages. They don't want to pay, raises. So it's going to come to a point. It's changing in the aspect that it's going to help the individuals like us, where you could get a project and you can have multiple projects at a time. Because they're no longer going to have to say, you have to work these hours. No, you do your project, you do your work, you collaborate with who's on your team, and that's it. They can't dictate anything if you are in control, which it's not fully there yet, but I can only imagine that it's heading in that direction. And I think a lot of meetings are bullshit nowadays. Like people are like, well, what we can have meetings, just when you have group meetings, you still need some sort of like communication, but having scheduled meetings all the time for stuff that you don't really need to talk about that you can talk about in an email, I think things are changing. I think people realize that time is more important and productivity is more important. And I think that people will take advantage of having the opportunity to work on multiple projects where they can um, secure their income. So if one project falls short and they get laid off, they still have like 3 or 4 on the go. And I think that's just the way things are going to head down in the near future. I can't see it not heading in that direction.
I absolutely agree with that. I think it used to be the entire like value or worthiness of the employee was focused on hours, like how many hours you're putting in. I'm like, no, what's important is what are you putting out? Like, what's your output?
Productivity. Yeah. What's your
Exactly.
productivity? Like hours mean nothing. Like there's so many, And I was just actually, I was recording a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about um, how a lot of tech companies are implementing what's called a return to office. So like Amazon, like they've
Mm-hmm.
recalled, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think like 50,000 employees worldwide back to the office since their COVID remote work mandates. Now that these people have to go into the office, well, over the course of the last 2 years, I haven't seen the actual study, but my guest actually was talking about it, that the productivity in some of these companies that have done return to office has been astronomical on a downslide, that the
Oh, wow.
productivity has gone downwards. Because think about it, you're optimized. If you optimize your morning, if people, if the right people, they get up and they optimize their best self in the morning, they don't have to spend an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours on a train or in their car driving to the office. They can get up, ease into their morning, have a proper breakfast, maybe go to the gym, do all the things that they have time for. They don't sit on a crowded bus or streets or train and be in that rat race that is stressful. It's an unhealthy environment. By the time they get to work, they've already wasted their most productive part of their morning.
Right.
They've ruined they've created stress. Then they get into that locker room talk, or whatever you want to call it, coffee room talk, in the hallways, and they're just having those conversations that are unhealthy. They're not productive, and it's just gossip. Whereas people who work from home, they get up, they optimize their morning, they maybe take the dog for a walk, they get the kids to school, they spend some time with their spouse, then they start work on time, and they've already feel like they've accomplished so much. Another thing,
Exactly.
as part of the commute, most people are unhealthy. So what do? They go through Starbucks and they get a sugary coffee, which spikes their insulin. Then by the time they get to the office, they're already on a downward crash. It's actually, like, it's not rocket science to figure out why people are not productive when they're in the office, when they've been working from home and they've been able to optimize more sleep, all these different things, and they can get up and be more productive. And I think it's not about how much you work, it's about how productive you are, like you had mentioned. And I think we're seeing that result now. And I think companies are going to make a big mistake if they decide to continue to do this return to office.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, there are some downsides of constantly working from home because you feel
Yeah.
isolated, blah, blah, blah. Then you start doing random things around the house because at some point, my I've been working remotely for, well, as long as I've been in France, so 6 years by now. I found a very easy solution. I just go to a coffee shop or somewhere else. I just change the
Yeah.
environment at least
Yeah.
once a week, if not twice. And this has helped me to stay productive and not get distracted by, ooh, the laundry basket that needs to be folded or something like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, it helps you with, like, if you want to work in a co-working space, totally cool. Like, but I think with companies now, like, you don't need to have this flashy office. Like, for what?
Hell
What
no.
company morale are you building? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, save that money and invest into your employees on other things like training and or retreats. If you want to have a meeting, do a retreat every year for a week where you bring your whole team together. You don't need this fancy office. I can tell you that's what's going to actually build morale for your team, is when you get people, like, I worked on some roles with this blockchain company. I won't mention them just to keep it confidential, but they do company retreats 3 times a year to exotic locations like Dubai, Brazil, Singapore, and they bring their global team to all these conferences. You can't tell me that's not going to build morale and build team spirit.
Better than a
Where
freaking office and a coffee machine.
exactly, right? Like, here's the, yeah, we hit our Q4 numbers. Here's a pizza party. Like, sorry, no, like, actually invest into my future. Um, and I think that that's where companies, these new progressive companies, are taking a stand, and they're actually doing stuff for, society and for their workforce. And you keep your staff happy. I still don't think that you should keep people longer than 2 years. I think, or you pay them properly and give them proper raises at market value. I think with contract work, you get to renegotiate your terms. So I'm not surprised people jump around every 2 years and try to get a bigger payday, because ultimately, like, companies are not loyal to you, why should they be loyal to the company? Like you're
Exactly.
company, and then you get slapped in the face with the layoffs, 4 years later, and then you realize you've been underpaid for those 4 years because they've hired somebody with less experience at market value, which is like 20% more what you're making.
Exactly. I have a trick question for you. Just going back
Yeah.
to one of the original points that you've made, which is still attached to this. So you said you've always felt like you always had the fire in you, basically this
Mhm.
whatever, some internal drive to push you further. I know I've met a lot of people through my coaching side gig that are not sure whether or not they should be taking a leap, etc. What would be your, I guess, recipe for that? Like, how can you understand whether you should or whether you're ready for it?
There's no perfect time. I think the perfect time was yesterday. I think the perfect time is now. It's just jump in. There's a quote. I have a quote that I use um, in my um, in my podcast, and I'm actually going to pull it up here, just because I think it's really important to show people that there is no perfect time. So I'm just going to pull it up right now, just so you could I can read it. I have it written down, but I want to read it properly because it's something that I think will resonate with a lot of people, and a lot of people don't actually realize how much truth is behind this. And the quote is, at some point, everyone is a rookie. Your favorite entrepreneur, so Elon Musk, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, or any of your favorite athletes, they were all rookies in the thing that they are now great at. Greatness does not start at the finish line. It starts with being brave enough to take that first rookie step. So there's so much truth behind that, because when you look at greatness, that's all you see. You don't see what those people went through. You don't see the amount of failures. They've failed more than they've succeeded. But
Yeah.
where their greatness comes from is their mind, that they've been able to pick themselves off, dust themselves off, and get back at it. And I think that is what you just have to just get at it and fail quick and fail often and learn from those mistakes. Because when you fail, it's not a failure, because failure is when you quit.
Love that.
Failure is growing pains. It means that you have now hit a ceiling, that you're being bounced off of that ceiling, and what you're doing at that moment isn't pushing you through that ceiling, and you have to just try something else, and eventually you're going to push through that next ceiling. And then it's just like, at every level, it's just leveling up and leveling up, and
New level,
some
new
some
devil.
level. Exactly. Every level might bring a different challenge. You might actually get through a level faster than you did at before. And it's just, you're just eventually just you're gonna hit a brick wall. You're gonna bounce through it, but it means you don't have the weaponry or the arsenal to push through that. But if you train your mind to figure out what you need to do to get through that, like let's look at um let's look at Elon for an example with SpaceX. He didn't just build a rocket and go to space. Think about how much he's invested and his team has invested trying to get their rockets into space. They didn't get it on the first go. They've probably failed multiple times.
Oh, for sure.
Like multiple times. Same thing with Tesla. Like, well, he didn't start Tesla, but just use Tesla as an example. To try to get these cars to run off of battery power, the amount of times that they would have failed. But it's not failing. You're learning.
Learning,
It's like
exactly.
it's so I think it's like, get started, like quit finding an excuse, quit self-sabotaging yourself, and just get at it and make that mistake, and you'll figure it out. It's like, and I think you can resonate with me on this too, because you're a podcast host, as am I, that you didn't know. You probably didn't know what the heck you were doing when you started a podcast, but you just
Hell no.
figure it out. You
Exactly.
you just figure out what you're doing. You figure out how to get it on Spotify. You figure out how to get it on Apple and how to edit and all this stuff. You just learn. But like, how much more rewarding is it that you've took that challenge on and you figured it out? And I think
And that
people
I
are
didn't
just,
quit when it was hard. Like I've had
yeah,
moments when I
exactly.
wasn't pushing for like a month at a time. And I was that close just saying screw it. But I just was like, no, you know what? I haven't given it its best shot. I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah,
And
and it
today
and,
I'm
and it's
fucking happy I
rewarding.
did.
Yeah, like I mean, I think I'm almost 30 episodes in. I'm 6 months into my podcast. It's been uh, it's been a challenge for sure. There's times where I'm like, oh crap, like I got to edit this episode to release tomorrow. I've released every single Monday, and whether I've had to like clear my schedule to get the editing done Monday night to meet my goal, I've just had to get it done. And it's just it's a mindset thing. And I think people when things get hard, people tend to crumble. They don't like hard. But then I always ask, choose your hard. What's going to be harder? What's going to be harder down the road? The fact that you quit something that was hard then, and now life is harder because you've quit something that could have been made you successful, and now you're still working that same job that you've been complaining about for the last 3 years, where you could have been in more of a financial free state. So it's like, really, at the end of the day, it's like, choose your hard. I'd rather pick hard now at the beginning. And that's why I say start now, start early, fail often, learn often, and eventually you figure out a way to trick your brain that when things get hard, it just gets easier for your mind to push through those things, because your sense memory just takes over and your inner warrior takes over, that any challenge you face is not even that big anymore.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, basically.
Yes. Well, and that what's funny is that's where I think that's a quote that was instilled in me with acting. Get comfortable being
Mm,
uncomfortable. And so I think my mindset's changed a lot from, as an entrepreneur, podcast host, digital solopreneur, whatever you want to call me. If I didn't have that acting experience, I don't know if I would be in the situation that I'm in right now. I think acting built that mindset that you have to just go for it and be uncomfortable, like you just mentioned. And that's something that it's powerful, because a lot of people get complacent, and a lot of people quit. They quit as soon as the things get
it's hard.
really hard.
Yeah.
They grumble. They fold like a cheap beach chair. Like it's crazy how people just like let go and just like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. They didn't even give it a full go. They quit before it even actually got really hard.
Exactly. I think because of social media, first and foremost, there is this expectation that things need to happen fast. It's like, oh, if I don't go viral tonight, fuck it, I'm not gonna post anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's like super false expectation. Things take
Yeah.
time, and it's okay. Like babies are not grown within the belly within 1 month. Like it takes 9 months,
100%.
and it's fine. That
Yeah.
things should take time.
100%. I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
And I think,
I think I actually, and it's like you have it and the ability to reinvent yourself every year. But when you hit a certain age,
absolutely.
most people just accept who they are and don't ever change. Whereas in order for me to get to where I'm going to be, I think I have to go through about 15 more versions of myself, of growth, to get to where I am at. And I think I've realized that plan, and it's going to take a while, but I'm up for the challenge. And by the time I get there, I'm going to be a completely different person, but my identity will still be the same, but it's just going to be better and newer and better versions of me.
Right. I'm completely on the same page because I've definitely seen various versions of myself, and I'm like, I'm not even like, this is not the final version. I know it's like, I
Mhm.
mean, whatever you want to call it, your higher self, your the best version,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm like, I can see it, and I'm definitely
Mhm.
gonna get to that point, no matter how long it takes.
Exactly. And I think that's the way to look at life. You have to have goals. If this is where manifestation comes in, you have to have these goals, vision boarding, all these things you can do to figure out, if you don't have a plan to where you're going, life's just going to go in circles.
Exactly.
But if you actually have a vision and figure out and have an idea of how to get there, I think it'll help you along the way. Your idea might change, but that's okay. The destination
Exactly.
doesn't
Mm-hmm.
change,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just your idea changes based off the knowledge that you get in present day.
Absolutely. I think keep your eyes on the prize has been this motivational quote that I've heard. I cannot remember, maybe on a podcast or something. It was actually like a priest who said it to a young athlete. He was like, just keep your eyes on the prize, man. And ever since I've heard that phrase, I was like, yep, that makes so much sense, and I'm going to use it.
100%. And I think when you start envisioning success and preparing yourself mentally for that, you just automatically start seeing opportunity. You're prone to seeing opportunity, and opportunity comes to you
Exactly.
because you're open to it. And it might not be something that you've envisioned in the past, but you just then say, hey, this is actually a really good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I should take this. And it's when you start, preparing yourself for those opportunities, and opportunities come at the weirdest times, and you just have to be open to it. But in order to be open to it, you have to prepare yourself to be open to it.
Exactly. Exactly. On that note, let's get to my favorite part, the homework. I know
Yeah.
we've discussed a ton of things,
Yeah.
and I know you had an idea at the very beginning. So I wonder if you've changed it by now. What's going to be the
No, I
homework that
think
you're going to give?
I say this is morbid. So if
Okay,
anybody's
you're still at it.
listening
I
to
like
this,
it.
um, is if people really are considering change in their life and they don't know, how do I say this? If they don't know where to start and they don't know how to get themselves going, something that I think is really powerful is write your eulogy or your obituary. And like as if you died today, and what legacy are you leaving behind? What are people going to say about you? What are people going to remember you by? And if the answer scares the shit out of you, that's your answer to get going. So that's what I would say. I'd say that's the best way to go. Write your obituary or your eulogy as if you died today. And it's supposed to hit hard. It's supposed to hit you deep within to inflict a change that you have the ability to make, because only you have the ability to make change in your life.
Absolutely. Tough exercise, but a very powerful one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Last question. What is the one truth that you know today that you wish you could have told your younger self 5 or 10 years ago?
Start earlier. It's true. Like, it's really true. Start earlier and just trust your gut and listen to your gut. Don't listen to your head, because your head will play tricks on you. Your head is always the thing that talks you out of things. It self-sabotages you. Your gut instinct is usually never wrong. Trust your gut, go for it, and just let things be. So I think that's probably the best way to go, is just start early, start often, and pick yourself up and try again.
Yeah, I would 200% support that, because if I were to name like one single regret about my whole journey, is that I didn't start the side gig early enough, because now I have 2 small kids, and you can imagine that it's like, yeah, I'm not pushing just myself anymore. I have the little carriage behind me. So the pace is not as fast as it could have been if I didn't have the little carriage behind me. So I 200%, I second that. It's like, start now. If you think it's early, it's not early. It's probably already too late. So just start now.
100%. Just practice, find your rhythm, find who you are, work on your mindset. I think working on your mindset is the most important thing, and just eliminate negativity and just don't allow it to creep in, and just focus on you and move forward.
Beautiful. How can people find you and your podcast?
So you can find me on Instagram is probably the best way, because I have in the link in my Instagram will have all the links to everywhere you could find me. The Next Day Nomad, all one word, on Instagram. My TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything is in there. If you're looking for a remote job, there might be an opportunity for us to work together. There's another thing in there that I'm launching my coaching program here in the next, it's going to start on February 1st. So it's like a New Year's thing where people can start focusing on a remote style lifestyle. So have a look at that. But yeah, Next Day Nomad on Instagram. We'll have all the links below in there.
Awesome. And we'll obviously tag it in the episode description.
Amazing. Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank you
much,
so
Jarrod.
much.
It's been
Yes.
amazing. I knew this was going to be great, and it even surpassed my expectations because Olga's amazing. So I was like, her husband has to be at least on the same level.
She's a gem, isn't she? So
She
yeah,
is.
no, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here, and yeah, I'm excited to listen and hopefully my story can resonate with some of your audience members and push
I
them to
think it
take
will.
action.
Yes, that's the most important part because I think people can
Take
get
action.
a lot of validation after listening. And then I'm like,
Yes.
I hope you take action.
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely.